What's up, guys? Hope everyone is doing okay. Crazy stuff happening in the world right now. Very, very difficult and worrying, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. The war going on with Israel and Iran. I'm going to touch on whatever comes to my mind, you know, the political instability with the protests in America, and just really kind of run through. I have some notes here, so let's get into it. So many things to talk about, so I'm going to be a little bit all over the place, do my best to kind of organize everything. But basically, we just had a full moon in Sagittarius, I talked about in the last video, right? This was the lowest full moon in the last, I think, 20 years in the Northern Hemisphere. And, you know, Sagittarius is all about truth, right? And we have different, and it's also about religion, religious truth. And it can be, you know, about extremism at a certain level, right? Religious extremism at a certain level. So, you know, how far is someone willing to take their ideological beliefs? Then you add the Saturn and Neptune conjunction square Jupiter, right? And I was just saying in this post, I almost want to read it, that I wrote on my Instagram. And I wrote yesterday, I wrote, Mars will be on fixed star Regulus in a few days, which is the 29-degree Leo mark, which is also Trump's ascendant. And I'll talk about Trump in a second here because there's a lot going on with him. Also, this full moon, I have the, like, okay, don't, if you hate Trump, don't judge me. I wasn't chosen, but I have this, I didn't choose this, but I have the same moon and ascendant as Trump. So like 21 degrees Sag and Regulus rising. So yeah, you know, that last full moon was exactly on his moon, and it was opposite his sun because his birthday's today, the day I'm recording this. Which, yeah, he's born on a full moon with the nodes. So so he's having a lot going on, and his Mars is conjunct, is a 26 Leo, 26 Leo, let me see, I wrote it down. 26 Leo, yeah. So he's having a lot going on, which will explain some of his behavior, but we'll get into that in a sec. So yeah, so royal star tied, so this is a royal star tied to power and legacy, but also downfall. It can lead to massive ego flares or very massive actions. When I said massive actions, I meant just, this is also happening when Mars is squaring Uranus, guys. So I'm going to give you guys a timetable. Things are going to get a lot more calm, thank God, around the solstice, right? So today I'm recording this on the 14th. So, you know, this is the most difficult part of the year, right? Like, we had very difficult parts of the year energetically that were more slow. This is in terms of you know, global conflicts, just crazy things happening. This is the hardest period. There's another period that's, you know, second week of August, third week of September. Those are also periods that are sharper and less poignant, but still have some difficulty, right? And this is, there's nothing is like long, you know, that's on this level, right? Obviously, it's hard to like make these, you know, war is war, right? And there's the chart of the star of war, etc. But we'll get into that. So anyways, so yeah, so what happens when you have Regulus, and also the chart of Israel, I'll talk about that chart of Israel, chart of Iran. So Israel's Mars is around, it's a 28 Leo, right? So the day I'm recording this right now, Mars is conjunct Israel's Mars. There's so much stuff going on in those two charts. The craziest part to me was Uranus, the planet of instability, the planet of just things happening out of nowhere. Iran's moon, the day that yesterday where everything started, or yesterday the day I'm recording this, Uranus was 0.01 away from Iran's natal moon. Like, come on, guys. So if the moon equals, I wrote down here, I wrote Iran natal moon at 28.50 Taurus. Transit Uranus is currently at 28.49 Taurus. Astrology never lies. Moon is equal to the homeland and the people. Uranus represents these shocks and surprises amongst things. They had Neptune, and they also had so in the chart of Iran, the IC, which is like the foundation, it represents, you know, the IC in any kind of chart. It represents you know, the home, the foundation, the undercurrent, really what, you know, the basis of everything. You know, really the energetic foundation of everything in the chart of a country. You know, it's very, very, very important because it has a lot of bearing to the actual country. So the IC for Iran is 0 degrees Aries, right where that Neptune Saturn conjunction is. So you see all this stuff going on, right? And right, so I said Uranus represents these shocks and surprises. They had Neptune on their Mars and Mercury for some time. Yeah. So also before any of this happened, like a lot of people like because the chart of Iran has Mercury, Mars 25 Pisces, Mercury retrograde 27 Pisces. Well, Neptune and Saturn. That like a lot of people are asking, well, why did they not move faster? Like, well, it's because Neptune and Saturn were on those planets for so long, which still, it's a little bit past them now, but that clouds those energies, right? Especially on Mars. Mars is about, is that connected to war, connected to action, connected to violence, connected to assertiveness, right? So when you have Neptune on that, it's a very, very confusing and difficult time when it comes to making the right actions. And then Mercury, of course, with communication. And this recent full moon also had Mercury with Jupiter square Saturn and Neptune, which would have add even more confusion to that. So that's a little bit about Iran. But back to what I was saying. So this is what I wrote, guys. I usually don't read this stuff, but I wrote Jupiter in Cancer square Saturn/Neptune in Aries. Cancer equals the home. Aries, aka Mars, aka war, aka violence. Saturn is governments. Neptune is idealism, which squares Jupiter, which is the potential for, a square is that tension, right? So a square between Jupiter and Saturn, Neptune has the potential, it always has the potential for overdoing anything and going over the top, right? Just boom, let's do the thing. Let's do this. Let's not think about it. So it's inflated nationalistic sentiment clashing with collapsing governmental ideals. That's something else I'll talk about. Outright deception, or / outright deception. Cancer wants to protect, Aries wants to charge. You see? So that's the big thing here, is that Jupiter, and then also I wrote Jupiter in Cancer also gives a massive need to defend the country, because Cancer is that most patriotic energy, right? And Jupiter makes everything bigger. So people have this idea of Jupiter that's always good, always positive. Well, Jupiter is an expander, right? Because sometimes I see charts of people who have Jupiter on the IC, and I'm like, oh, you must have had like a really, you'd think, oh, it must have been like a really amazing childhood. But they're like, no, it was so traumatic, because it actually connects to the rest of the chart, and then you see, oh, damn, So a lot of times it is speaking a very beautiful childhood, but that's just something I want to say. So I wrote, for example, look at the history of what happened when Pluto was in Cancer. That was when World War I started. That was when World War II started, right? Because there was that patriotic need to defend the homeland, right? Pluto's a little bit different, but still. Then I wrote, also Uranus about to be at 29 degrees Taurus, and which is sudden instability and unpredictability. The last degree is always about urgency, finality, and karmic culmination. So that hasn't come yet, but right. So I wrote that, and then I kept looking at it more, because I like to just kind of like look at things and then just dig in and put them out and then dig more and more. And I was like, first I was blown away of like how close that conjunction of Iran's moon was to, or transit Uranus was to Iran's moon, because it's like the moon is the people, the moon is that sense of, being grounded in an area, right, of safety, of security, of the home. And Uranus is sudden shocks and changes. So that was crazy. And then the big one is that right now, so let me pull up current planets. Mars, so Mars at the end of Leo, this is the big thing, follow Mars. When Mars moves into Virgo, a lot of this is gonna calm down, right? But Mars is in this very difficult place. And I can tell you, like having Mars, my rising there, like I can, not that I matter in this at all. I'm just telling you as someone who has a similar chart to Trump, just those two placements, it's crazy, right? Because like we also, like I realize this too, Uranus is squaring Trump's ascendant too, and my ascendant. And so when you have Mars on your ascendant and Uranus squaring it, I tell you guys, like, I probably look like shit, right? Like, I was looking at myself before. I think I look a little better now. My eyes look so bad. Like, I have not been sleeping. I have had so much energy, and I'm just like, I don't want to sleep 7 or 8 hours, like, which sounds very manic. But like, it's just like I don't, I just have like I've gone from like I just have so much energy, and I'm not like acting rationally, but that's the thing. When you have that much pressure on you, yeah. So, anyways, more in a second. But I just thought I would add my experience to as having the same ascendant as Trump. So, yeah. So one of the most dangerous and unpredictable and explosive transits in astrology is Mars square Uranus. Right? Anyone like when people have that natally, I always warn them against. A lot of these people are huge risk takers. They like to do extreme sports. They like to jump out of planes and skydive. They like they're very risk taking people, right? So when you have that happening, right? And I wrote here, where I wrote it, I have a huge. You can't even see. It's just scattered doctor notes. Yeah, so that creates this like very unstable energy, right? So when something kicks off like that, it really makes it like anything can happen, right? And I was saying that yesterday. I was like, by the time I'm making this, who knows what would happen, right? Because that's the thing with this Mars square Uranus is that when you add that with the Sagittarius full moon, where there's so many different truths, and I'm not following different like medias like CNN or anything like that. I'm looking at things, independent journalists. I like to look at things on Twitter where it's one person who has one stance and the other person who has the opposite stance. I don't like to put myself in echo chambers, right? I like to hear both sides of an argument. Obviously, I have my own. I hope you guys don't hear my machine. Obviously, I have my own political opinion, which I'm not going to share now. But if you know me, you probably know what it is. But it's not even political. I would say it's more just like having a soul and being a human. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, so I wrote chaotic / unpredictable, no way to forecast what is next when you have Mars square Uranus. And let me go to current planets right now, because I mean I already know where it is. It's exact right now, because you have Uranus at 28 and Mars at 28. Yeah, so you have and then the Sun. Yeah, never mind. So yeah, Uranus at 28:52, Mars at 28:33. So this is going to intensify and have its apex around start of Sunday. So, and the fact that it's in fixed signs also just adds like a stubbornness to it, right? And a lot of it is about resources. A lot of it, with Uranus, and with the fact that it's Taurus, that's Leo, is obviously there's a lot is about positionment and resources and whatnot. But anyways, so having, and then Jupiter square Neptune, that one will be full in a few days. I think probably the 18th. And then by the solstice, things will relax, right? Now, also, one of my followers on Instagram said something very interesting. Let me see, I pinned it. She said, she's an astrologer too, Sankhya Luz. She said, Israel's Mars is conjunct Regulus. Mars return about to get very active. Okay, but then she said, when morning star Venus last crossed that point was October 7th. Crazy. So, astrology is showing everything that's happening here. Now, with Trump, as I was talking about, right? A lot of people have seen, even people who, and look, I'm not a politics person, okay, so but I have noticed a lot of people who were, very pro-Trump have criticized him, for essentially getting played and acting in a way, even people who, like a lot of people were very pro Trump, right? Before, and then have started. I'm not going to go down this road, but have started to kind of be the opposite. But then some people who have stayed that way, even those people have looked at some of the actions and been like, "What the hell?" Like I at least thought you were smarter than that, right? This is other people's words. So this is what happens when you have all of this energy, right? When you have all Mars, you just had your Mars return. You're having it during this very tense full moon period on your moon, right? It's just it's a very, very tense time, and of course because he has the nodes, he was born on an eclipse. It also has a huge karmic element for him, but overall, I just don't think that he is. I think it's like the worst time for Trump to be in this type of position where he has to be on his A game, because the thing about, especially as Mars gets to 29 degrees, which is only a few days away by the time this video is out, that's a very, very Mars at 29 degrees, on Regulus, but still at 29 degrees, like that adds like that sense of urgency, and especially when it's in Leo, when it is connected to Regulus, there is that sense of the ego really taking control and like kind of like reckless potential actions, especially if things aren't going the way one wants them to go. There is the real potential of doing something that's not well thought out, and that kind of plays back to the whole Jupiter, the whole Jupiter square Saturn, Neptune. So on one end you have like this idealism, right? And this is all gonna, next March, I think it's next March, right? That's when the full conjunction is. But the idea is that you have like the autocratic rule, which is Saturn, and then you have the more revolutionary energy, which is Neptune, which is getting very, very loud. You see that in the United States, right? With the protests and people just not being down for the BS. And I talked about this last video, but there's a lot of historical times where during Saturn Neptune connections, things like communism or socialism or whatever either come to fruition, or there's large scale protests that destroy them. So it's really making a lot of sense. Like the Berlin Wall, I said that last. I know I should have better examples, but I think that's a pretty good one. So basically, you're seeing that, and I think that's going to be a big theme, right? And I talked about this in January, right? In my inauguration video, if you guys go back, before we knew anything about the presidency of Trump, right? I was like just looking at the chart of the inauguration. I was like, it's really interesting that you have Mars on the IC retrograding Cancer, opposite Pluto conjunct Sun on the midheaven, right? And it's almost like I was like, that Sun conjunct Pluto is almost like the absolute power of the government. And then the Mars retrograde in Cancer on the IC is like I just kept getting this image of like the public uprising, right? Of the discontent, but the retrograde, it's kind of like this, it's like this frustration, this mounting frustration, but people feeling like they don't have a voice, or like it's like even if they do, like that voice is not doing anything, right? And that's the difficulty, because like the Pluto, conjunct Sun in Aquarius, I think that's like the first time that's ever happened in a inauguration chart, right? Because they're always at the same time, but Pluto, had just entered Aquarius, and that's the only time it would happen, right? Because they're always, So it just really gives a lot of power, and there's just so many aspects in that. Moon was opposite. Was it Moon? I don't have it in front of me. I think Moon was opposite Saturn, I believe. Yeah, I should probably pull that chart up. But the point I'm making is that that was able to be seen a while ago, right? That was something I predicted. And you have all this stuff going on right now, Now, let me just like look at what I have. So yeah, I think that as Mars, so like a lot of people, Americans are, wondering like, is the U.S. I don't know, things with Uranus, Mars square Uranus, like this is the last transit you want when there's a potential, like when there's a war. Like it is the most insane, just like I said, unpredictable. I will do like the least grounded energy, and when it's fixed, there's a lot of ego that comes into it, right? And there's a lot of you can't tell me nothing. There's not. It could be very authoritarian, very not really as much about kind of having a discussion, talking things through. Just like let's do this, let's go. Like very ego, Leo, like very very ego based, very much like you play me like that. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Boom, and not thinking things through, which is like the most dangerous thing. So we just have to pray. Obviously there's the plane crash also, which is like a very Mars square Uranus type of thing. But I haven't really looked into that. And then obviously Jupiter square Saturn, right? There's a big connection with prices increasing. So we'll see. Obviously the financial markets have not done well, and I think like Uranus 29 degrees, as we get there, it's just that's that breaking point. That's that. Things will be more calm by that point, but before changing to Uranus and Gemini, Taurus is related to possessions. It's related to what in this context, like what a country has, right? So okay, Mars at the end of Leo, trigger point. Yeah, so let me see. So basically Mars is that when? So it's probably around Wednesday. Let me give you guys an exact day. So like I said, it is very tough to predict these things, but the solstice is it the 22nd, right? Or is it 23rd? 22nd. So yeah, by the 22nd, Mars is is at 2 degrees. Mars moves into Virgo the 18th, Wednesday. So Wednesday, I'm not going to predict and say that things are going to be way calmer, but look, like Wednesday, you have like the moon in Pisces, Mars has moved into Virgo. It's still, it's still making that aspect. So it is really by the solstice that it's moved far enough away to not be so volatile. And let's see. But 29 degrees of Uranus starts the 17th. And then it enters Gemini on July 8th. So that could also bring some stuff up. I imagine, yeah, definitely. It's really tough to say because I remember when I was making a video about Russia, Ukraine, or I don't even know if I made a video about that. But I did see one video by a really good astrologer, and based on his analysis, he was like, I think it's going to be a very short war. It's still going. So it is very hard to say with these things, right? Like you can look at the astrology and you can kind of tell, okay, like it all makes sense, like why this happened. I guess what I would say is that from the Iranian perspective, it's like this is all or nothing, right? With the astrology and just with the actual information, it's like this is a threat. This is make or break for them, right? There's no. This is something that's been building for decades, right? And with the Uranus there's this desire for liberation. There's this desire for moving into for evolve, for just getting past this, right? And you combine that with leaving the fog of Neptune and Pisces and entering Aries and having that triggering that very, deep, just that very deep part of their chart, that I see, and then having Jupiter in Cancer, they were attacked first. The need to protect the country, it's a huge country, right? So it'll be interesting. But yeah, Trump's chart is very, it's very worrying. But by the time this video comes out, I mean, I think that when Mars moves into Virgo, he'll be in a better position to not trip out as, or to kind of like make better, more grounded decisions. But, he's still going to have Uranus squaring his ascendant, which I never really thought of. I didn't really think about that one until I kind of thought about it for myself. I was like, damn. But, when you have both of those together, Mars on your ascendant, which is a big, big one that doesn't last much time, but then Uranus squaring those two together are just electric, and especially when you just had a full moon in exactly conjunct your natal moon, it's intense. So let's see what else I got. Let me pull up the chart of Israel. Yeah, because Israel, their sun at 23 Taurus, so Uranus finished that conjunction a while ago. Yeah, they had their Venus at 4 Cancer, so Venus is not, so I guess they waited. I'm not saying they timed this astrologically, but I mean, it makes sense. If they did, it would make sense, because it's like you would time this for when Mars, you had your Mars return, right? When transit Mars was so close to your natal Mars, because like Regulus Mars is just very, very militant. Yeah. So. And they have Speaker rising. Yeah. It's funny when you look at these charts of countries and it's like, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure an astrologer, in 1945, it's like, of 1948, it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure an astrologer was there to tell them when to start this country, because, come on, having a Spica ascendant, which is one of the best stars. Yeah, so overall, I guess the good news, I would say, or the fortunate stuff is that, I was going to tell you. So I'm recording this on the 14th. And really, like, this is the time. There's some quote that I can't remember it. It was something about like how history, more can happen. More can happen that has historic significance in a 1 day or 2 day period than in like a 50 or 100 year period, right? So it's like, this is one of those times. And I haven't even looked at the news today. I just like woke up and made this video. So, I'll have to see like kind of what's happened. But I mean, one thing I wrote yesterday before Iran had even like fought back, I was listening to a lot of like political people talking, and they're like, oh, I don't think that Iran has the capabilities to even defend itself after losing all those people. And the thing that I wrote in my Instagram story was, because of the Uranus, don't like whatever, sometimes when you watch, I'm not gonna compare this to sports, Okay, oh, fine. Like, I don't sports bet, but like, I used to, and I was really good at it, but I quit. Sometimes there's like, you have certain percentages. Like, let's say like, there's like a 35% chance of this happening, like a 28% of this happening, 15 of this, or even like a 50% of this. So this would be the kind of energy where I'd be like, don't bet on the one that's the most likely. Like, all bets are off. Like, you have no idea. There's no point in even like thinking, right? And so I was like, the most likely what's going to happen is, I forget exactly what I said, but it's like it's not something you can imagine. It's like the most, it's very, very unpredictable. Like, if you think that Iran doesn't have the means to fight back or the ability to fight back, I just had a feeling that they were going to, right? I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't think they're just gonna. I think that something will happen. Of course, they did fight back, right? So that's kind of how this conflict is, and I wonder if there's a chart for the. Probably not, huh? Let me see. A chart for the start of the war. But regardless, I mean, just as countries have charts, humans have charts. Every meeting, like when you meet a spouse or like a relationship partner or a friend, that there's a chart. There's a chart for everything. So there's also a chart for the start of wars. And in this one, it would be, in the time after a full moon, right as Neptune and Saturn are square Jupiter in Cancer. So everything I said at the start, where Jupiter wants to protect, or Cancer wants to protect, and Aries wants to charge, and Aries is the planet, the sign of war, of Mars, of action, right? It's almost like this more. It's like we're waking up from this Pisces time that was more dreamy as this last video, and this is just like charge. This is like, okay, like all the idealism, Neptune, all the ideas of like what we want to build. Like, let's do it. Let's go. Jupiter's like, and then you have, this is how astrology works. You have the outer planets, right? And then you have the triggers. The triggers would be like, in this case, the Mars square Uranus, right? Or the fact that the transits it's making to the leaders' charts. I haven't looked at Netanyahu's chart. Yeah, I haven't even looked at that. Hold on, I'm looking at something interesting. Yeah, so another thing about like this energy, I guess like a good way of putting it is ego flare-ups, right? That's kind of what it is for Mars square Uranus, especially in fixed signs. Ego flare-ups, and like fixed signs are like carry that energy, that you can't tell me nothing energy, like I said, right? So, so I'm looking here. It says there's a link between the current square to previous Uranus and Taurus / Mars aspects of 1940, 1941, fascism, megalomaniacal tyrants pushing boundaries, literally Great Depression. Mars square Uranus ignites the worry, frustration, desperation, fear, and uncertainty of Jupiter square Saturn / Neptune. So you see, that's what I'm saying. It's like that's like the Mars square Uranus ignites that kind of like very unstable energy, right? And especially with what's happening already in the world, with, I guess, in the United States, with the protests and just all over the world, there is this feeling. There's been this even like think about like, was it March or April when we had, there's back-to-back months where we had all of those retrogrades, and then it was April, right, where we had Saturn conjunct Venus the entire month, which is insane, right? So there's been like a lot of buildup, and I was telling people like from a big perspective, a zoomed out perspective, like, Jupiter entering Cancer is amazing, right? And I think one thing I've noticed is that on a personal level, I guess like this has really kind of shifted things, but I've had some people tell me that they've been feeling like better, like personally, like energetically for them since it's moved into Cancer. But then like with all the stuff happening in the world, it's like very, very hard to, right? But yeah, like another part of seeing here of Mars square Uranus, like the fact that it's a trigger point, it can manifest as accents, outbursts of anger, violence, explosions, like literally, like it rules like the two most gnarly aspects in astrology: Mars square Uranus, Mars square Pluto, right? But like also Mars Uranus is very much about revolution, riots, right? So we see that happening. And then the fact that there's that Jupiter square Saturn / Neptune element, that means that they're related to something that's far bigger picture, right? I mean, even if you think about the U.S. and the protests, it's like that the Neptune ideal, like Neptune in this case could be the idea of one party to, kick migrant, people who are in the United States illegally out of the country, right? And then Jupiter is that clashing of that. Jupiter in Cancer is that like, no, these people belong, these people are a huge part of the country. These people, we love these people, right? They're coming together. So I'm just trying to see. Yeah, okay, here's looking at. When Mars is conjunct Regulus, right, which is like like coming up in a few days. By the time you guys have seen this, it's probably exact. Exciting events are always, especially exciting events are always recorded, e.g. assassinations, coups d'etats, revolutions, revolts, demonstrations, the overthrow of heads of states, and similar events. Yeah. Yeah, so I just thought I would add that stuff in there. So yeah, it's all very interesting. And this is just kind of how it works. Like I said, you have periods of time where nothing's happening, or it seems like very, very little is happening. Things are kind of in this state of limbo. And then, boom, out of nowhere, chaos. And then you're just like, what is going on? How can there be this happening here, this happening here, this happening here, this happening here, then this is happening more? It's like that's, And I guess like my Sagittarius moon, Pisces sun, not advice, but, I guess how I feel about it from a spiritual perspective. Knowing being able to see the astrology manifest in these types of ways that are very ugly, right? But still, nonetheless, being able to like see that this isn't random, right? That we incarnate in this world, and I always call it the great mystery, right? The Hathor aliens. If there's this book called The Hathor Code that's very interesting. And apparently it's a channel of these aliens, the Hathors, that apparently this dude told me that I was a Hathor alien. don't know if that's true or not. But anyways, it's so easy, for the human brain to label good, bad. And from that to start to lose hope, right? To think that like this thing is so ugly that there's no way God can be in this, right? And, I wrote on my Instagram yesterday, when I was, pretty frustrated and sad about this, being someone who loves Iran. I just love everyone, and I was like, is there any better reason to learn astrology? It ended up coming off as an ad, because I was like my main point was like, I don't want to come back here, learn your chart. And I was like, get a reading with me, but learn to manifest the highest energy of your chart. Be a good person. Fulfill your role. Fulfill your potential. Don't perfectionist. It's not about being perfect or being, famous or anything like that. It's about just you fulfilling your role. You manifesting the highest version and learning the lessons that you're meant to learn. What's in front of you, and there's also like the psychological perspective, right, where the psychologist was talking about just learned helplessness and how there's just so much biohacking has been done to humans, to make us feel like we can't control any outcome, and that they can just do things and we can't have any control over it, right? We can protest this and that, and that's by design to really make us feel, and she was talking about like, COVID, not to bring that up, but just like how people have not recovered from that, and the need for oxytocin, which comes from human connection, also animal connection too, but being able to like how people need to like look other people in the eye and laugh with other humans. It's important, right? And how people aren't doing that anymore. And she was basically saying like, how she thought that this was all by design, right? To really, the whole right wing, left wing thing. And I'm not getting political, throughout the world, and really just divide and conquer, right? And my biggest hope with the coming Uranus and Gemini, with all these outer planets, is like, yes, it can be very chaotic, but just hoping that people come together more, not to, just in the sense of like the normalization of people with different views of things being able to talk and not being so hostile. The issue is that that part of it is to keep people in their bottom chakras, right? It's to keep people broke and just so when you're biggest, it's like the hierarchy of needs, right? Someone who's homeless is not thinking about their spirituality in the sense that they're constantly thinking about where am I going to sleep, where am I going to get my next meal, right? So that's by design. If you don't think that or believe that by now, then I don't know what to tell you, right? Why is astrology pushed away? Why are things like this, anything empowering, anyone empowering killed, right? It's because that, people understand their true power, that the purpose of them being here is God, and God has a purpose for every single human, right? The fact that that is the reality, the ruling class can't have that be known, obviously, right? No one would want to work for them. No one would want to be wage slaves. No one would want to be, the religion would not be capitalism and possessions and status. It would be like truly would be God. And there's a lot of people that speak about how much they love God and this and that, but then when shit hits the fan, God goes away. That's a big thing I've noticed, right? So back to what I was saying before, I think that fear is the biggest fear is the devil. I think that prayer is everything. I think that, your position, you have to just look at like, what can I do? What do I align with? And not think about fear. Not think about, what if I, like speak your truth. You know what I mean? Because most people are thinking like you right now. This isn't how it was 5 years ago, where people are like, even I want to believe there's a lot of brainwashed people, right? But I want to believe that with time, things like this, it's becoming more and more obvious, right? Especially like the Trump stuff. Now I'm going to get a little political, but whatever, I don't give a fuck. I didn't vote for anyone. I'm technically a U.S. citizen. I don't live there, and I am French. Je suis français. If you guys didn't know, je m'appelle Jessie. Je suis français, mais j'ai le passeport américain. Okay. So I can vote in the U.S. election, but I didn't vote, right? But I could definitely see, I knew a lot of people who were voting for Trump, and I could definitely see why they would, right? I haven't talked to anyone, but I've seen different people, on social media and whatnot. And it's just so obvious, like pretty much everything this guy promised, it's like the worst manifestation of what could have happened. It was always a risk. And so even those people, a lot of them, like, yes, you're going to have like those very stubborn people who are never going to be okay with admitting that they're wrong, that they were wrong. But at what point do you realize that you got played? You got fucking played. And if your last straw was okay, like from an American perspective, the Democrats were this, Democrats are that, blah, blah, blah. Trump is like was seen as a savior, right? He's done worse than anyone ever. Like he's done just as bad as, look, I don't want to get political. Like he's done horrible. Like none of the good things that he said that he would do. Look at, like, I don't have to list every example, but like there's nothing good he's done, right? And if people don't understand that the left wing, the right wing is the same shit, it's a bird. Literally think about it. This is another thing. They make things very obvious, right? Left wing, right wing. What's flying it? What's the brain? What's the fucking, if there's a left wing and the right wing, that means it's a bird. Like they don't even fucking hide the shit, right? It's connected. I've known this since I was 17. And then I lived a life where I was like, holy shit. I hate that I know this, but I'm also happy I know this. If anyone saw Zeitgeist back in the day, that was the OG one. Back when I used to smoke weed in college. I remember watching that and just freaking out, being like, holy shit, everything is a lie. Everything, money, the Federal Reserve, this, that, the IMF, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But that's the hope, that when things become so extreme and so obvious, it's like with addiction, right? It's like you have person A and B are both addicts. Person A is an addict, but they don't crash out. They kind of stay in that zone where like no one can really tell that they're suffering from an addiction, right? So they never get treatment. And then person B is just fucked, excuse my language. Like they're just like nearly dying in the hospital, just so belligerent and just the way their physical appearance looks, everything that's so obvious that they need treatment, but then that obviousness leads them to treatment, which then propels them from zero to the best version of themselves because they actually go through the healing process. So that's kind of how it is, right? That's my hope, is that the more obvious that everything, that that these politicians and these people have made it, that more people will wake up, right? More people will wake up to this, and just that the astrology, of Pluto and Aquarius, people coming together, people caring about humanitarianism, caring about each other as humans, not as fucking races. Oh my God, don't get me started on racism. It's funny, like, I live in Argentina. I know I'm rambling, but I don't care. It's like a podcast now. Should I even go this direction? Okay, whatever. Like, people always talk about, Argentina is so racist. And I've lived here for a while now, and I'm like, it's not racist at all. Like, yeah, you have people in every country that are racist, or that are saying stupid shit. But it's like, it's almost like they see race as such a stupid thing that it's something that can be just joked about, right? And I see that in certain areas now, and it's just like, that's the way to do it. Like, if everyone, it's like Denzel Washington said it, right? It's like, if people didn't think it was a thing, it would just go away. It's like, whatever you let bother you. And I know that there's a whole lot of historical shit, and as a white man, can't really say this stuff, but I have a lot of friends. I have friends of every single race, and I find that with certain friends, especially back in the day, we just like make fun of each other, like my best friend Trey, like he went to a school in Singapore where everyone was from a different country, right, an international school, and he told me that, like, his friend group, one person was from Africa, one person was from India, one person was from Asia, one person was from US, UK, and France, whatever, and they would literally just all make fun of each other's races, and that was, it just made them closer, and it kind of, there was no racism at all. It was just they were just making fun of stereotypes. So it's like stuff like that, and just like the Pluto and Aquarius coming together, shared ideals, realizing that we're all one, realizing there's no difference between us. I mean, I've been to so many countries, there's no difference in humans, right? And just with the Gemini Uranus, things will change, right? Like, communication will change, and I just hope that is reflected in a way where, Gemini is about conversations, about discussion. There's so many conversations that need to be had. There's so many norms that need to be broken, right? There's like, we need to be able to talk about all subjects without falling into those bottom chakras of security and the need to prove your intellectual superiority and that fear of being wrong, proven wrong, and this is tough. This is obviously like a very idealistic wish, but yeah, I mean, crazy times right now, but hey, we're all here for a reason. Whatever your role is, you play it, and I said it years ago. I was like, the people who are studying astrology, the people who are learning about what really, energy and all this, like, you're ahead of your time, because it's going to explode. Because really, we're moving into an era where people are not going to be okay with bullshit. We have had especially with like the Neptune and Pisces, like, we've had so much bullshit. Not even just like content creators, but just everything is bullshit. Music is like, so much popular music is bullshit. So much movies are horrible. Like we're living this fake dream. Keeping up with the Joneses, all that. Like, just want the real, And I've heard that from so many people. Like, I just want real people. I want real creators. I want real artists. I want real, and that's what Aquarius is about. Aquarius is about, I'm being myself. If you like it, you like it. It's about personal freedom, personal autonomy, and moving forward. And Gemini also is linked to these things. They connect very well. So to have, Pluto and Uranus, which are very, very important, and also Neptune and Aries with Saturn. It's like it's a new beginning, a new start, and we have to hope for the highest manifestation of that, right? Yeah, like I think the first step is seeing who the real enemy is, right? And if that consciousness can spread, I know I'm rambling, but if that consciousness can spread, because it's been crazy. Like there's been things that I never would have. I can't give examples, but there's been different different ideas that have spread, or different ways of thinking that I didn't think would be possible years ago, right? So it's like if that can become a norm, to have open debates, to not be an idiot, that, you know, I don't know. I just have to have faith. But regardless, just keep doing what's right. You can affect things, even if you think you can't. There's a lot of anxiety that occurs in the brain when we think that we don't have any control. Look up Learn Helplessness in psychology. So do what you can, you know, and have faith, because like even financially, right, things are going to change a lot, and I do believe that the powers that be, you know, they understand that consciousness is rising, and that's why all this shit's happening. They're trying to, you know, they're trying to push, they're trying to counterbalance that effect, right, of you know, of people not being as gullible as they were before, right? And that's part of this whole Neptune, Saturn square Jupiter, is that, you know, the protests, right? People are not down with this bullshit. So keep going. In the sense of like, don't think, the last thing you can do, yes, you're just one person, but don't think just because you're one person. Aquarius is about togetherness. So you can make a difference. By you doing that thing that might be a little bit scary, or where you think, oh, there's no point, you're inspiring someone else who might think that same thing. You know what I mean? So anyways, I'll leave it there. Anyone who wants to get an astrology reading, live or recorded, let me know. And yeah, and I teach astrology one-on-one. And people at all levels. I create the course exactly for you, and it's very, very fun, and it's well priced as well. I just love doing it, so I price it lower. And what else? And yeah, and I offer every kind of reading, compatibility, but astrocartography. I do relocation astrocartography too, where it's like I can tell you in your city, or in a city, like what specific areas are, you know, good for what and bad for what. So yeah, just let me know. Follow me on Instagram at Jesse Innocent Astro, same as this, or I guess just Astro at the end. And if you want to email me, it's jesseinnocentastrology@gmail.com. It's also good to just follow me on Instagram and message me, although sometimes the messages don't come through, but I think they have been lately. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll talk to y'all later. Ciao. Bye-bye.